Manchester United 0, Newcastle United 2. Another defeat for Manchester United. That first half in particular, one of the worst that we've seen all season. I'm joined by Scotty. Just before we get into details, how did it feel watching that match today?
Not really surprised, to be honest. I think apathy is setting, certainly as for me as a United fan, given the past 12 months as we reached the end of the year. I expected what exactly happened in the first 45 minutes, and that's just a massive indictment of where the club's are at the moment. Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, we're watching the highlights of the first goal back, and let's start with that first goal, because as I was watching the build-up to the goal, I was thinking, we're not really putting any pressure on these passes, and they play into the middle and it go back out wide, and each player would have a yard or so space around him, and then they switched it over to the left-hand side, and he had a load of space around him. I think it was Lewis Hall. Then the ball goes into the middle of the box, and it got a bit of a deflection. Isaac nods it in from 4 yards out with loads of space around him. Every single pass, every single moment of the way for that ball going in the back of the net, no one got close to any Newcastle players. How can that happen? How can it be that we've been so poor, we've been so sort of up against it in terms of results, maybe a little bit unlucky at times as well, so there should be a feeling of being a little bit aggrieved. There was comments and reports that there's an anger and a vengeance to the players in training, and that they want to go out there and prove that. And then 3 minutes into the game, we can't even get anywhere near Newcastle players, and they score. How is that happening?
I mean, if that was a team that was riled up in vengeance, bloody hell, it was some of the most passive display of football. I think you mentioned there, it's easily one of the worst halves of football I've seen a United fan in recent history particularly. But it's not the only time it's happened against Newcastle tonight. It's a repeated thing. Yeah. Bournemouth, exactly the same. Wolves, I was speaking to you and Ronnie on the watch along, and you can have players that have got greater ability in your opponents or whatever, but just not to have that intensity. The amount of 50-50 balls that we were either pulling out of or not going into, all over the park, sloppy mistakes, and to have that in the first 4 minutes set the tone for the rest of the game, and it was just error after error. The Mainu substitution about 30 minutes in when Xerxes went off changed the game slightly. Okay, so we were a little bit tighter at the back, but the problems at the front, we've got problems all over the park. It doesn't seem to be getting better and better, and we're reaching the end of the year and it can't come quick enough.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the stats from that first half, Joe Linton obviously got the second goal after 19 minutes, beating Martinez in the air. But, they had 11 shots to our 3, 4 on target, 4 big chances as well. To United, admittedly, we did have 2 big chances ourselves of those 3 shots on target. But just more of everything for Newcastle. And take the stats away from it, we said this at half-time. Just watching that game, Newcastle in the first half completely battered us, didn't they? It wasn't even close. It felt like, and this isn't, I'm not commenting on Amorim's current job security, but that first 45 minutes felt like the last game of a manager before they get sacked. Where the players, not only is it not quite working out, they looked utterly clueless. They looked like they didn't know what the manager had told them. They looked like they were themselves a little bit upset, frazzled, all over the place. It was that kind of performance completely bereft of ideas and intensity and work rate, that you just feel like this surely is a manager who's fighting for his job, and he's only just got here. How can this be happening? How can we have a performance like that? Is it the personnel? Is it application? Obviously, Bruno and Ugarte both suspended. The likes of Mason Mount are injured. Rashford's out. I'm clutching at straws here. How can that happen, do you think?
Well, we just seem to, every game that we lose or progress through the season, we're ended up with more questions than we are answers. Like I said, they are all over the park, and I don't think the manager leaves Old Trafford tonight without anything pointed at him, because having to choose Casemiro and Eriksen as a midfield pivot was the wrong decision, and that was evident when he made the Mainu substitution and Xerxes came off, because that was an option that he could have started with. Do your homework, and that one of Newcastle's strengths is that midfield of Bruno, Joe Linton and Tonali, and that changed the game somewhat as we moved towards the second half. But if you just go across the park, it's just comedy of errors, every single person. If you look at the ball into the box for the initial goal, 3 centre-backs in the 18-yard box shouldn't be getting beat. From Isak was about 5 yards, 10 yards in front of them at that point, and nobody was tracking back and watching the man. And then from there, strategy just went completely out the window. It's like in a heavyweight battle where one of the opponents has been smacked in the face, and it was just shell shock after that. Yep. And it's not the first. And give credit where credit's due. I thought Newcastle fully deserved the victory. We had some half chances, but we were looking at Casemiro, and that miss that he had in the last stages of the first half pretty much just summed up United to a T.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, looking at the league table as it stands, United are 14th on 22 points. Going down, obviously, Palace just 2 points behind us. Everton 3 points behind them, but they've got a game in hand, so Everton can go within 2 points of us as well. There's a bit of a gap down, 6 points down to Wolves. And then only 7 points down to Ipswich, who are currently in the relegation zone. I saw a little graphic the other day of teams who at this stage have had more points than we have and end up getting relegated. And there's I think 3 teams that have accrued more than the 22 points United have got. And we're halfway through the season now, exactly. We've got 22 points. Double that, you've got a 44-point season. Generally, that'll keep you up these days. But is there any guarantee that we will get the same amount of points again? Because we've lost 5 of our last 6 games. That's absolute free fall. That's not just like, oh, we're struggling under the new manager. It's going completely wrong at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's difficult to see where it improves, especially when we'll need a goal scorer or someone to create chances up front. Look, we've got Ugarte coming back, and he was massively missed. I thought before kick-off tonight, I thought that was going to be somewhere where Newcastle will capitalise in the centre of the park. Creativity through Fernandes. I think you were talking about a stat earlier on regarding how many times United haven't scored or lost when he's played at home, and that goal was a while back. So we've got them 2 players to come back. But in terms of a direction where we're going within the short term, because I 100% believe in Ruben Amorim and what his plans are for the club, but it's just the emotional roller coaster that we're going to have to go through as fans week in, week out, and endure games like this. His job now as a manager is to try and sort of carve out wins whilst balancing his vision or strategy of how he wants to play football, because the worst thing he can do now, which may, steady the ship for a bit, is go back to a 4-4-2 or some formation that suits these players just to try and get a few points under the belt, because then that's more confusing. It's like you go through short-term pain for long-term gain. It's going to be a balancing act, and you are going to get them fans who are going to say, well, he's no better than the previous man. Personally, I don't think the personnel is good enough. I thought Mainu was great tonight when he came on and was probably the brightest spark in what was a really dark cloud at Old Trafford. But if we look over the past 4 months at Old Trafford, or the larger part of the year, Fernandes turns 31 next year. There's not too many players, if that's how we're going to set up with wing backs and the rest of the 2 number 10s. There's not too many players I know at Old Trafford now that I think are good enough to take us anywhere where we need to be. There isn't Mainu, Ahmad, Mazraoui. Apart from them, there's not anybody else who I'd say is safe at the club.
It is an awful. I mean, we're literally the worst we've ever been in my life. Like, factually. I was born in 1993. We've never been this bad my whole life. So it's unprecedented what I'm seeing. I've never seen United be like this. And it's like, it's almost baffling as much as it is sort of infuriating, because I know that the players aren't good enough, and I agree with what you've just said, your assessment of who's good enough and potentially who isn't. But surely we're not this bad. Surely a team that, 18 months ago had just finished 3rd, isn't all of a sudden this bad. I mean, I know you look at our best players that season. Varane was sensational, Martinez was sensational, as was Casemiro and Marcus Rashford. And Varane's left, Casemiro's, beyond sort of gone at this point in terms of his legs. Rashford's nowhere near the player he was, and neither is Martinez. But I still think, how can we have gone from being 3rd, 18 months ago we finished 3rd, to now we've got 22 points after the first half of the season. I can't believe it's this bad, and just because you're being told to play 5 at the back, we just lose every week now. Maybe football is that high level, and the margins are so fine. And when I look at the teams above us, they're all very good, other than West Ham, who were awful. Brentford are a decent side. Tottenham can do it on their day. So can Brighton and Villa and Fulham and Bournemouth. I get all that. The fact that Forest is 2nd is ludicrous and shows that anything can happen. But I don't think that we're this bad. I do think that we have to take not just the players in terms of their overall quality isn't good enough. I feel like that almost gives them an excuse. Like if you say to Garnacho, let's say Anthony or Casemiro or Eriksen or whoever it is, Dallo, you're not good enough. Well, therefore, you can be shit and that's just what we expect. I think we should expect more from these players. I don't think they're this bad. I think that a lot of times we've got used to being able to phone it in a little bit. And I don't think this is the best version of these players at all. So the fact that they're not good enough is one problem, but they're also not putting the effort in enough. I really do think that. And I think some of the decision making from Casemiro tonight, the passing he was doing in the first half was like he's never played football before. Every time he gets it, he's just volleying it into the air to Højlund or Ahmad or whoever. You think that's just idiotic. You're not an idiot. Your legs might have gone, but you're not thick. You're one of the best central defensive midfielders that's ever played football. Do you really think that's a good pass? I think we need to hold them to a slightly higher standard than it always just being, they're not good enough. And I'm not blaming you because they aren't good enough. But it's like we've accepted that this is their level. It's not. We need more from you. We need you to work harder and do more.
That's the frustration, though, isn't it, Joe? It's that we're aware of their ability, and Marcus Rashford is a prime example of this because we've seen how good he is on his day. And I'm not going to turn this into a slagging match about him because Casemiro tonight was another one. We know how much his ability is worth on the pitch. It's the application of that. Yeah. You can be as talented as you want, but if you're not going to go out there and bust a gut the way the Newcastle players were tonight, working together as a team. Because that's massive, that. Yeah, where we have so many different players that seem to be working on their own sort of idea of how the team's supposed to be, set out. It's just massively confusing. But we do not have the intensity of our opponents. And my frustration is that I don't think intensity is something that you learn on the training field. It's a desire, and I hate the word passion merchants and all that sort of stuff. But it's evident in the body language.
Yeah,
this is the 6th defeat in December, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Right, okay. How do you be a professional sportsman, something that I imagine all these people have wanted to do all their lives, hold your head up high after losing 5 games on the bounce, playing for Manchester United, and then go out and put out another performance like that? How do you find the excuses to that? And that's either you're not asked because you're going there paying up a pay packet. I can't see any other reason behind it. And it's not down to strategy formation, it's a lack of want.
Yeah, it is. And we found ourselves in this position time after time over the last few years where you're just looking at them going, are you even bothered? And normally it's after a manager's been there for 2 years and 3 months-ish. And this manager's been here not even 2 months. And it looks as though that some of the players either don't get it or don't want to get it or, are sort of almost that, what's it called, weaponized incompetence, where someone goes, do the dishes, and you do it wrong on purpose so they won't ask you again. Yeah. It's like these United players are going, we can't do 5 at the back. Oh, we shit at it. They won't make us do it again. We'll go back to 4 at the back and we can have it our way. It's almost like they're doing it on purpose to get him to be able to change his mind or to show that they're not buying into it. I don't get what it is. I think it is more than just these players aren't good enough, because they're not as bad as we're seeing. Some of the passing today was stuff I'd be embarrassed about, and I'm a below amateur football. I'm a Sunday League player. These are some of the best footballers in the world, whether we like it or not. Mr. MT says, if we lose the next 3 matches, do you think they'll sack the manager? I don't think they will. I think it would be a disgrace if they did, and I think it would be an absolutely abysmal start to what has already been a poor start from Ineos. If there's any pressure on the manager other than you need to start winning some games because you're the manager of Manchester United, if his job security gets called into question genuinely by the ownership, I think it's an absolute disgrace and we should really start worrying about who owns Manchester United personally. Duncan says, mentally we've always been this bad. Maybe. SG said Xerxes ran less than I did today, and I've got a torn ligament in my hip. That does feel like a bit of a worry. Just on Xerxes quickly, I mean, his performance was really bad. We know that. Are you worried for his future at United already? Do you think he's worried for his future?
I mean, nobody likes to come off after half an hour of football at Old Trafford, do they? And the fact that he ran off down the tunnel once he'd been substituted. Listen, he's had his critics since he's been at Old Trafford. He was bought to play under a different manager. Amorim's given him enough time though on the pitch, to be fair. So obviously he's seen stuff in training to warrant him some playing time, or is it down to a lack of options with the Rashford situation as to why he's getting more game time? Who knows? He seems too laid back and not good enough to have that sort of modus operandi to play for Manchester United and to play in the Premier League. I don't know who'd buy him, to be absolutely honest with you, and that's going to be a massive problem in January or the summer with a lot of the players that aren't out of contract, where we're going to get money from and who's going to sign these players. But I think it was Gary Neville who said it. He's a human being at the end of the day. Okay, he was playing for Bologna 6 months ago, and then got the opportunity to play for the biggest club in the world. He was never going to turn that opportunity down. So he came. If he leaves and it's not worth, then he'll join a list of other players that I've gone down that road. But booing players off or cheering when they're going off, it's very bad taste.
I just wanted to mention that. I think that's unacceptable, really, especially a lad we haven't got a long multi-year soap opera with him and Manchester United of his attitude or anything he said off the pitch or anything that he's done on the pitch. He's someone who's been here for 3 months and maybe isn't a good enough player to play for Man United and take us on to the next level. And but I think cheering someone off sarcastically / booing him off, for me, I don't think there's any need for that, and it certainly doesn't help him. And I think as United fans, we should be supporting our players, and especially if he's come out and said something publicly or he's done something, I still wouldn't do it myself, but I can maybe see why people would want to express a dislike for that. All he's ever done for United is try to play well, and he hasn't. But I don't think you boo someone for that personally. I think that's never a good look for me, booing your own players. Super chats. Hands up for the Panther says, stop watching United, break for Christmas. No fake fans of negativity. Love United, but keep busy is good. Paddock is great, thank you very much. Take a break, guys, it helps. Take a break from the agenda media, it's good for your health. I'm sure it is, although taking a break isn't really much of an option because this is what we do every day. Jibak Sahu says, how do we turn this around? The players won't get better all of a sudden. Any new player will just regress to our current levels. Where does this end? In terms of light at the end of the tunnel, things are never as far off as they seem. You're never as many players away from being a decent team. You're never as many weeks of good form away from being decent. All it takes is for 2 or 3 players to have a good season and kick on and a couple of decent transfers and you're challenging for top 4 again. It's never as far off as it feels like it might be in moments like this, although it is pretty far off by United standards. But you get a good summer and a couple of players having a good year, and all of a sudden, look at Nottingham Forest.
That's exactly what I was going to say. What did they buy a new keeper in the summer and a couple of other players, and now they're second in the league? If your recruitment's done right, if your club's ran correctly, then anything's possible in the size of Manchester United. You'd expect, should we get a good January and a summer transfer window and buy the players for this new system that Amorim wants to set out, then I have full faith that we can go there, but it's whether Ineos are going to do that. And I just want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier on about if Ineos are thinking any way, shape or form sacking Amorim. The reason it's not worked or seems like it's such a car crash at the moment is down to Ineos. It's down to the fact that they wouldn't pull the trigger in the summer and get rid of Ten Hag, or they were adamant that they wanted to change horses midstream, despite Amorim's want to stay at the end of the season and give him a pre-season with the players. And now he's trying to sort of build something whilst learning to drive it.
Yeah, they've given Amorim such a difficult job, and it could have been avoided, like you said. Either give Ten Hag all season because you backed him and that's your decision, or sack him in the summer. What they did was the worst of both worlds, wasn't it? Duncan says Xerxes an easy sail back to Italy. Motta wants him back at Juve. I know he wasn't at Juve, but back in Italy at Juve, and his stock is high there. Was it Juve? I know we.
He was at Bologna, but Motta was the manager of Bologna.
There you go. Very well done. I knew there was a connection there. His stock is high. At most, you make a 5 million loss. Samuel Whitcomb says Ollie's stock as a manager keeps rising. Positives. Mainoo was class individually today. Was good. Kobbie Mainoo, probably the only player who I'd say had a good game. Ahmad was good. Seems like he has to do it all alone though. Yeah, I feel for Ahmad. It wasn't his best game today, but still did more than most players on the pitch. Frey Bentos George, which I hope is a nickname, which is fantastic if it is. Scotty looks like Mata. Missed that little fella.
I get that quite a bit.
Yeah, you do look a bit like him actually. Anthony Bitar says Motta wants Xerxes at Juve. Same point there. Why not swap him with Vlahovic? Well, if United want him, let's go for it. If not, let's not just do it because it means us getting rid of Xerxes and we've got another problem on our hands. But Vlahovic does seem like a decent striker. Thank you, Scotty. Thank you not just for coming, but for being here with me, for being my support network during what was an absolutely terrible year, really. Yeah, we had the FA Cup, obviously a fantastic win, but United ending this season just slumping to the finish line, dead last. We finished the league this year of 2024 in 14th place, merely 7 points above the relegation zone,
You've got
having played a full half of the Premier League season. It's unprecedented in the Premier League era. United are as bad as they've ever been in my lifetime, but we all have each other. So stick around. We'll be hearing from Stephen Howson and Andy Tate in a little bit as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Scotty, again. We'll see you in a bit.